Hello again, Steve here with a bit of a late night ramble for a few minutes. I'm going to call this one, well, actually I don't even know what I'm going to call it. I had written down manager outflow. I don't know where that came from. But I'm going to call it prohibitions, or the value of prohibitions, or watching our downside, perhaps. Now I don't always agree with this, but it's actually probably a fairly, see what you think of it anyway, see what you think of this idea. It's probably a fairly valuable. I've often wondered why it is that old commandments, things like the Ten Commandments and so on, they were always about thou shalt not, right? And when I started looking into the whole freedom concept is based on also something like that. Things that we, like prohibitions. In other words, I shouldn't kill somebody. I shouldn't steal from them. I shouldn't lie to them. Because it's kind of like, we're not expected to do anything for anybody, really, unless we have some sort of an agreement, or we've obliged ourselves because of having children and so on. But in general communication in life, we're not. I mean, it's nice to be. We have preferences that people be nice to us, and probably that we be nice to others, and this sort of thing. But there's no expectation, right? So therefore, the only thing there is left is that we have the preference not to be violated. And therefore, we construct that kind of a concept of thou shalt not. And then things can flourish from there. It's kind of like a benchmark, right? It's kind of a benchmark of areas that we don't go. And because we don't go there, we all agree to that. It's because it's something innate in us that we realize we don't want to be violated like that, therefore we're not going to violate others. We allow the upside, the flourishment of all the good stuff. Something along these lines was said by Donald Trump years ago. I was reading a book years ago by him. I forget his name, what the name of the book was. But it was, because he was always talking about investing. And what he said was, if you take care of your downside, your upside will take care of itself. And what he meant by that, I guess, is that in investing, the idea is if you win even a small percentage of the time, you're on the winning side of the play, right? And so if you guard the downside, minimize the downside and let the upside run, then you're going to be, that's his strategy, is that's how he's going to be on the winning side. And in morality and in ethics and this sort of thing too, we would hope for the same. I mean, if we're not going to go complaining that somebody came by and mowed our lawn, or left us a care package, or said hello, or gave us a hug that we wanted, or said hello, nice smile, or shook our hand, or these sort of things if we wanted it. But we would make a big issue of it, or we would really feel it, and it would be significant if they come up and punched us in the nose or something like that. And it's kind of like, because that would be the benchmark violated, right? Whereas we don't need to say anything about the upside. We don't need to. We don't need to make an issue of it. We appreciate it, its quality of life, it's all of that. But there's no controversy, right? So, just some thoughts about, because I think it relates to having principles, having standards, and it's something to think about, is where are those? It's like a lot of times we think we have duties and obligations, to countries and to monarchs and to societies and social constructs and social contracts and all that sort of stuff. It's all just made up stuff, right? But we know inside is that we don't want to be violated, and therefore we don't want to violate others. And even if it's not to do with others, if it's to do with our business, or say it's our business, we want to win the game that we're in, right? So once again, it's good to know what it is that we don't want, and what it is that we don't want. If we guard that, if we're mindful of that, then we're taking care of that important benchmark. And I think it's important to talk about this a little bit, because a lot of times in modern discussion and sort of new thought or new age thought and so on, there's the nervousness of talking about what's not wanted. It's all about, oh, let's only talk about what you want, this sort of thing. Well, it's important to realize, first of all, that what is wanted comes out of the experience of what's not wanted. And therefore, we want to be aware of what's not wanted. And there are certain things that are universally unacceptable or universally acceptable to people. And if something is valuable, we don't want to lose it, like life, like property, like our standing, or our honor. So we don't want to be lied to, we don't like to be stolen from, we don't like to be injured and attacked. And therefore, we don't want to do that to others. It's kind of like the basis, right? It's like the real basis. And everything else comes from there. I mean, look what Donald Trump talked about, look after your downside, your upside will take care of itself. Well, that has to do with what he was talking about was property, like physical outside of us, property. Well, that has to do with, the whole thieving thing, right? One of the downsides would be getting stolen, or getting stolen from, or not being honest about it in some way and getting in trouble, or something like that. That would cause us to lose what we thought was ours, or what we created, because of just not being aware of those foundationals. I'm not defining what the foundationals are. I just gave a few examples of life. Our physical, integrity, our property, and our honor. We don't want to be lied to, right? Those are kind of basis. Those are things that are probably universal right across the board, right? Everything else is details from there, or versions of that, really. But in terms of establishing principles, I would say they're important, and be interesting to see what you think about it. I know it was a bit of a ramble that didn't go very far, but in a way, I think it's really important to have that foundation. Whatever the foundation happens to be, if it really means something intellectually and in the heart at the same time, it's important, and it's probably best to maintain it. It's great talking, and hope to do this again. One other thing, to maintain it, but also to continue to fortify it. Continue to fortify what is solid, what is ground. Continue to question it. Continue to chisel away, honing away at it, getting a clearer and clearer and clearer picture of what it is that is our foundation on which we stand, beyond which is unacceptable for us, and therefore unacceptable for us to do to others. That's what it really comes down to, right? I know I've continued beyond my conclusion, so I'll sign off for now this time. It's great chatting again. My name is Steve. Talk to you soon again. Bye.